Why, yes, I have had a haircut, thanks for noticing. Welcome back, everyone, to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch, and today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new deck coming out of Rebel Clash. It's not necessarily the best one floating around, but it definitely is a lot of fun, and that's Palossand Mill. We're going to be using Palossand, the new Curse Shovel, and the old Alolan Muk to try and discard as many cards from our opponent's deck as possible and try and run them out of resources. We'll take a look at the list in just a second, explain how it works, and then go through some gameplay on the ladder. But before we do that, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Just click the subscribe button down below to do that. Always good to see more people jumping on board. Give us a like if you like the video, and comment down below telling us the kind of things that you'd like to see in the future, because we're always up for more suggestions. So without further ado, let's take a look at the list. So here we have it. This is our 60 cards for Palossand Mill, and we'll run through this card first, Palossand. It's probably the most important one. 140 HP Psychic type, so it's a decently bulky Pokemon, but we're probably not going to see it surviving for too long. We're not going to use the second attack. We're focusing purely on Sand Sink for a double colorless energy. We're going to discard the top card of our opponent's deck. Doesn't seem super great, but if we have a Cursed Shovel attached to this Palossand, this attack will discard 3 cards, which is acceptable, and obviously Cursed Shovel has some nice synergy there, because if we take a look at that card, Cursed Shovel says that if this card is attached to a Pokemon and that Pokemon is knocked out, then that person that's taking the knockout will need to discard 2 more cards. So that seems pretty solid. For every Palossand that we attack with, if we've got a Cursed Shovel on it, we're going to be doing at least 5 cards worth of milling, which is a solid amount. Obviously, if we don't have the Cursed Shovel, it's going to be a lot less effective, so we want to get that into play. And the best thing is, the longer the Palossand survives, the better off we'll be. Now, it is important to remember that Cursed Shovel is only damage by an opponent's attack, so placing damage counters will end up with us having our Pokemon knocked out without the Cursed Shovel activating, so we need to make sure that if we're playing against Dragapult or something like that, that we don't get these things knocked out by an opponent's placement of damage counters, because that would be very awkward. I mentioned in the intro we're going to pair this card up with Alolan Muk. We've got a 3-2 line of Alolan Muk here. It's not ideal, but it's a good way to supplement the mill that comes with Palossand. When we play Alolan Muk into play, we activate the Adventurous Appetite ability, which means we look at our opponent's top 6 cards, and we may discard any number of items that we find there. So there are lots of decks with a lot of items at the moment. Things like Scoop Up Net and Quick Ball are played in 4 counts of almost every top tier deck. So if we can get rid of those items, that is great. It means there's less resources for our opponent to use, and we're closer to achieving our win condition. So these 2 Pokemon are going to pair up to try and get those knockouts going. Those mills going. We also have, to help us along the way, 2 copies of Bellelba and Bryson Man. We can use this to discard 3 cards from the top of each player's deck, so in conjunction with maybe a Muk and a Palossand, we can really start to rip through our opponent's cards. Now, there's a lot of other things going on in this list. You feel free to take a look at it now. We've got Jirachi to try and set up our board as best we can. We've got 3 copies of Pokédoll, because we're not going to be able to attack with Palossand every turn. We're going to try and naturally mill some cards, force our opponent to knock out something for no prizes. And since we've got all single prize Pokemon, we are going to force our opponent to attack at least 6 times unless they've got some other snipe going on. So we've got a pretty positive situation here. We can also use a Reset Stamp as well to kind of disrupt our opponent. But apart from that, the deck is relatively simple. One interesting card, though, that we should mention is Lana's Fishing Rod. We can use this to shuffle a Pokemon and a tool back into the deck, so if a Cursed Shovel is kind of been in the prizes or discarded early without being attached, then we can use that to get them back and search them back out with Adventure Bag as well. This deck is really, really cool. There's not a huge amount left to say about it. We've got the list in the description. If you want to copy that one into PTCGO and play through this deck yourself, you can. You're more than welcome to do that. For now, we're going to take this one onto the ladder and we'll see if we can get this strategy to work. So I'm not normally one to play a control deck. I'm not normally a massive fan. We'll call tails here, and we've won the coin flip, which is good. We'll get to go first. Put those baby basic Pokemon down. Like I was saying, I'm not a massive control person, but I can get behind actively milling someone. At least I'm doing something to try and win the game. Control is very frustrating. I've said this multiple times on the channel, and I'll say it again. I don't understand why people would play control if their end game is just to not let their opponent play. That is very frustrating. I understand why people do it. I'm not begrudging people that do it. You're more than welcome to, but it's not for me. This is the style of deck that I can get behind, though, because we will be actively milling our opponent's cards, so we'll put our opponent on a clock rather than forcing them to not play Pokemon cards. We've got a great start here. We've got Jirachi, we've got a Grimer, we've got a Palossand, and we just top decked an Alolan Muk as well. So what we can do is we can get the Palossand, put it into the deck, and then we can either go for a Jirachi or a Sandygast. Maybe a Ditto would be better here. We can chuck that Ditto down and then Stellar Wish. But we'll go first for a bit of thinning. We'll get the Escape Board and a Cursed Shovel. That will mean that we can Stellar Wish here. We can grab probably a Quick Ball, to be honest. If we Quick Ball away something maybe like the Lana's Fishing Rod, maybe the Cursed Shovel even. I think the Fishing Rod at the moment is probably the best. We can actually get ourselves a second Jirachi here. We can Scoop Up Net the Jirachi in the we can Escape Board the Jirachi in the active, and we have Scoop Up Net in hand for next turn. And look at that, we've managed to find ourselves a research as well. So this is really good here. Our next turn is laid out for us. We can play down the Muk, discard some cards, hopefully, attach Cursed Shovel to Ditto, use a Jirachi, Scoop Up Net into the Jirachi, and then research. We're going to be set to go. We are playing a Flapple deck by the looks of it. We've got Sableye IV in the active, and a couple of Applin on the bench, but our opponent not playing any cards there realistically, which is fair enough. We're going to have a chance now to take a look with Muk and see how many cards we can discard. 1, 2, 3 items on the top there, so we can discard those and shuffle the deck. Our first mill has begun, and like I said, we will go for a Stellar Wish here. I think that Pokédoll looks pretty solid. We can play that one down onto the bench, Scoop Up Net the Jirachi in the active, and then we can play it down, or we could even Pokemon Communication it. I think we'll just play it down just for safety, and then we can research away. And look at that, we've actually got Twin Energy, Palossand, and Sandygast as well, so that's really strong. We can grab this Scoop Up Net now. We can even start milling some cards right away, which I'm really excited about. We can play down this Sandygast here. We're good to go. We've got the Twin Energy in deck, which is going to allow us to attack. And then we are going to scoop up that Grimer so that next turn we can use Muk again, retreat into Palossand, and because we've got the Cursed Shovel, we are going to be discarding 3 cards from the top of our opponent's deck. That seems pretty solid. I mean, it's not amazing, but we are doing a pretty good job here. Now, a big problem for us is that Palossand is weak to Dark, so pretty much any attack that our opponent gets off here is going to be able to knock us out, but that's okay, because we can just take prizes, or we just take some cards from the top of his deck, right? We can just remove them completely, so looks like those 20 damage counters going onto the active and the Flapple going away, and Sableye using Load Search here to grab themselves a card from the discard pile. This could be a problem, because it means that they can pick up all sorts of stuff that they might need to control our gameplay here. They're grabbing Crushing Hammer, which is quite annoying. It's okay though, because it means our Palossand is still in the active, and we can use Muk again. Only 1 card there, which is disappointing. But that's okay, we can live with it. And we'll go with the Pokemon Communication to try and find ourselves another Palossand here. We can play that one down, put the Cursed Shovel on that, and then Cynthia, and we can start looking for some more cards. I think playing that second Jirachi down is really slowing us a bit here, because if we had got room on the bench for a second Muk, we could start to speed this process up a little bit, but we've pretty much got everything that we need. We can Sand Sink again, 3 more cards. We've got 2 energy and a research, which is really good. Probably didn't have to attach the energy on the bench, especially since we knew that our opponent has the Crushing Hammer, which is coming up now, but that's okay. We've got the triple acceleration in hand, so even if, yes, they get heads, even if they get heads, we can just acceleration energy and attack with that. We can see now our opponent's actually got a Trico there, so they're going to be using Turffield Stadium and Sceptile to be searching out Pokemon here. Oh, or is it Grovyle that has the ability? I think it's Grovyle, I'm not sure. Hopefully we see it, so I can be corrected. Flapple is getting sent back into the deck, and that Pokédoll is actually being targeted down there. It's an interesting choice. Our opponent going for Load Search again, so maybe their strategy is just going to be to sit back and hope for the best, hope that we can... hope that they can remove all of our energy here. Grabbing Tool Scrapper, which could be a big deal. Get rid of the Cursed Shovel. But we've got the Muck, so we can get rid of a couple more items here, which is pretty solid. We'll shuffle that deck up. We can attach the Triple Acceleration Energy, and then just research. We'll just get a brand new hand and see what we've got. That seems pretty solid to me. I think we're going to play this reset stamp, because we know they've got that... access to that Tool Scrapper, so we don't want them to have that, and we'll just Sand Sink, discard some cards. We got rid of a couple of Pokemon there, which is pretty good, but now our opponent more than likely does have access to energy, so if they want to take a knockout, they're more than capable of doing so. And there is that Grovyle, and so the Grovyle's the one with the ability, there you go, and they've got another Crushing Hammer, so hopefully they don't flip heads on this one. That's a tail, so we managed to save one of those energy. And the Grovyle will search out another Trico. Okay, so it looks like the engine for our opponent is to get a couple of Grovyles into play and then just constantly be searching out Flapple, which seems like a pretty reasonable idea. The best thing about this turn for our point of view, though, is that our opponent has actually played some cards. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Crushing Hammer comes in, and Tails again. We're getting a bit lucky here. And they've got the Applin and the Flapple now, so... they're not going to lose those. Load Search is going to grab another Crushing Hammer back. We can tell what our opponent is going to be up to here. But at the moment, it seems as though we're not really at any risk of having our Palossand knocked out. So we're just going to keep setting ourselves up here. We've got the Scoop Up Net again. The Grimer can go back down, and we'll just Sand Sink and remove 3 more cards. And see how our opponent deals with that. They've lost a lot of energy here, you have to say, but I think they're just going to go for that Load Search every time, so we'll see how it ends up working out. Crushing Hammer ends up hitting there, and I've gotten rid of another one of our Twin Energy. We've still got 4 energy left in deck, so it's not going to be impossible to do. And they've got a second Grovyle and a Flapple in play now, so... now their engine's really going to start speeding up, and they're going to get lots of Applins and Flapple into play every turn, which seems really cool, so definitely a good idea. And a Cynthia again. Now let's have a look and see how many cards they've got after this Cynthia. I think they're going to be on 16. Yeah, 16 cards. Alright, so we're in a position now where maybe a couple of Bellelbas and maybe a Muck or 2. Maybe we can get another attack off. If they do end up taking a knockout, then we could potentially get this game, actually. So we're in a relatively good spot. They're going for the Load Search again, and that Crushing Hammer keeps coming up. So they keep grabbing those back, which is fair enough. We'll play down the Muck, see what we get off of the top 6 cards. Yes, please. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. 3 cards milled, which is pretty solid. You'd be happy with that, I think. I think we're just going to hold on to all of these cards in our hand and just Cynthia, because we do need to get some energy here to attack with. We don't realistically need anything else. And there's Triple Acceleration, so that's really, really good. And we've got the Reset Stamp as well, so if our opponent does try and shuffle cards into their deck, then we could potentially get ourselves there. 8 cards left for our opponent, so we're actually in a really, really good spot. They need to take 6 knockouts. We've got 2 copies of Bellelba left, and we definitely are going to see some more discard from our Palossand. I hate to say it, I don't want to put the kibosh on it real early, but we really easily could win this game. That Marnie's a bit frustrating though, so we'll see some new cards here. It looks like the energy is being attached to the active. We could see a knockout on Palossand this turn, and that would be 2 more cards that we can discard, so I'm more than happy for that to happen. Looks like, no, they're going for the Load Search again. Okay, so they're just trying to lock up, looks like they're going for Tool Scrapper, so they're looking to lock up the ability to take knockouts without having to stress about that extra discard. But we've got the Twin Energy here, so we're happy. We'll just Cynthia, keep looking for some more Scoop Up cards, maybe some more Cursed Shuffles. Look at that, we've got a Reset Stamp we could play, or we can just Sand Sink here. I think we just go for it, discard 3 more cards. Now our opponent's down to 5 cards in deck. That Tool Scrapper being played is actually good for us because now they've got 10 cards, so that is excellent. We want to remove as many cards from our opponent's deck as possible. They've taken a prize, which is okay, but we still have Energy and Cursed Shovel, and they've used their Tool Scrapper again, and we just top deck a Grimer. That's super, super good. Okay, so we've got a Bellelba, I think, in deck. Yes, we do. I'm just searching with Turffield there. We can chuck down this Cursed Shovel, so now we're going to be all set and ready to go. And just having a little bit of a look here with Jirachi. We don't realistically need anything. We'll play down the Grimer, because if our opponent has any cards that are items left in their deck, we can potentially discard them with Muck next turn. And then another Sand Sink, 2 cards left for our opponent, and if they do try and attack into us, they're just going to discard some more. So we are in a really, really strong spot here. I think, obviously the Flapples going back into the deck is a bit frustrating, but I think we could be in a spot where, realistically, we are going to win this game, and we've been given a real good opportunity here. There's only 1 card left in deck because of that discard. So now, I think firstly we go for the Muck and hope that it's an item. So we'll just double check and see what it is. Is it an item? No, it's a Dark Energy. Okay, that's fine. I think now we just go for double Stellar Wish and try and find the Bellelba, because we've got a Bellelba left. We've got a 50-50 shot. We may as well. We'll chuck down the Sandygast because we might need that later. If we don't get the Bellelba here, we'll just go for the Jirachi, Stellar Wish, Bellelba. Cool. All right, so we win. How about that? We managed to mill all of our opponent's cards. Obviously, our opponent was very conservative at the start. They shouldn't have been, because that's it. They have no way of drawing cards. Therefore, they lose the game. I can't believe that it worked. Normally, when it comes to this type of deck, I'm always a little bit concerned. Sometimes it feels like they can take a long, long time to get going, but Palossand and Alolan Muk actually did a pretty good job for us. I was relatively happy with it, and I would be more than happy to play that deck again on the ladder. There are sometimes decks that you're just playing like, I'm never touching this again, but this one actually worked a treat, and if you get into a solid position, there's almost no way to lose with it if you can set yourself up in the early game. I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a brilliant deck, that it's going to win you every single time, but if you're looking for some fun and you want to test out a different win condition, then Palossand and Alolan Muk could be the deck for you. If you've enjoyed the content and you'd like to see more of it, then you are more than welcome to subscribe if you haven't already. The button's here. There's some videos over here that YouTube thinks you'll like, as well as a playlist down the bottom for more deck profiles from Rebel Clash. We really appreciate having you around to check them out. It's always good to see those comments on the video as well, so leave one as well as a like. And apart from that, we'll see you all next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.